right, Shalom, Shalom. This is your brother Zabak with another lesson. First, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shai, by Hashem, Rakah HaKadosh. Also, want to give double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS that read well, and thank you for this 100% truth. This lesson I'm going into today is the breakdown of Deuteronomy 28:68. Identify, linking. This is one of the scriptures that we use, was one of many, linking who are the true biblical Israelites to the book, people of the book, and that's your so-called Negroes, so-called Latinos, and Native American Indians. All right, so let's get started. This is Deuteronomy 28:68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there ye shall be sold into your enemies for bondman and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you. All right. So the two words we're gonna look at Egypt. We're gonna break that down and what this means in this context right here. And as you see again, it says, "Shall bring thee into Egypt again." Okay, this is not talking about literal Egypt, right? Egypt in this sense represents bondage, as we will go into slavery this time via ships. Okay, so it's not talking about, oh, we're going to be going to literal Egypt again, right? And to get more understanding on that, let's go to Exodus 13. Exodus 13 and 3. And Moses said unto the people, remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of hand Yahweh brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. Okay, so you hear Egypt, out the house of bondage, right? So that's what Egypt in that sense represents. Okay, so let's go to Exodus 20. This is Exodus 20 and 2. And Yahweh thy power, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay, so that's simply what Egypt means in that sense, because we will be going into slavery again, but this time through ships, right? And through ships. So let's get this. Let's get some images. Slave trade. And if you see this map right here, right, we'll be going into slavery again through ships. The transatlantic slave trade. Okay. Now so what's talking about is talking about America. Okay, because these were all where the slaves were, we was scattered, you know. So let's get back into Deuteronomy 28. Okay, so we established that Egypt in this sense represents the house of bondage. So we'll be going to slavery again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And it's talking about our holy land, Jerusalem, or Israel. And there you should be sold into your enemies, right? So let's go into how this is talking about the transatlantic slave trade, because you'll get people saying this is not talking about the transatlantic slave trade. So let's get into that. Okay. Okay. So we'll start at we'll start at two. Let's start at okay. Start at two. I will also gather all the nations that will bring them down into the valley of Yahashaphat, Yeshaphat, and I will plead with them. Judge, plead means judge them. Therefore, my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land. So Israel was scattered, right? And that's the other thing how we know. I mean, when you see the transatlantic slave trade, slaves were scattered through all the nations, spread it out, right? Well, let's get some words out of this one though. And go into these words. Let's see. I want to get Yahweh Shapat.
Strong's H 3092. Yehoshaphat. Yehoshaphat.
Okay, right here it says Yahweh Shapat. Slocky if I ain't pronouncing right. Yahweh has judged. Okay. Alright. Let's see. Look this up real quick. Okay, so let's go down. Joel 3:3. And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink. So they were selling our people on auction blocks. You know, and if you think about it, what other nation was getting done like that, getting sold on auction blocks? Okay, this is verse 4. Yeah, and what have you to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon, and all the coasts of Palestine? So these are your Hamitic tribes, the so-called Africans. Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense on your own head? Because you have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from your border. Okay, so in Joel 3 and 4, uh, these are your African nations, which were told that Africans sold Africans, right? But no, the Hamitic tribes, right? Just because we was like the same, close to the same color complexion, they linked us up with the Hamitic people. Okay, and that's where you get, oh well, your people sold your own people. No, they wasn't our people. We went by tribes right now. That's a whole different nation right there. Okay, so the Africans, so-called Africans, so-called, those are the Hamitic tribes, they sold us into slavery. Okay, Joel 3 and 5. Because you have taken my silver and my gold, and carried into your temples my goodly pleasant things. The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem ye sold unto the Grecians, right? So he's saying that the Hamitic tribes sold the children of Israel unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border. Okay, so we know this is not talking about Egypt, because it's saying that ye might remove them far from their border, right? So the Grecians are the so-called white people. They took over that land and called themselves Greeks, but the original people of that land are Japhetic people. Okay, but since the so-called YT man conquered them lands, they call themselves Greeks. You know, that's what these devils do. They conquer lands, they take them over, and they remove the landmarks off of them. All right. Okay, so in proving that, we can get Amos 1:9. Okay, this is Amos 1:9. Thus says Yahweh, for 3 transgressions of Tyrus, and for 4, I will not turn away the punishment thereof, because they delivered the whole captivity to Edom, and remember not the brotherly covenant. So Edom is Esau. Edom is the so-called YT man, right? That's who they are. All right, so now we're gonna need to identify how this Deuteronomy 28:68 is talking about. How do we know that's talking about America? So let's get Jeremiah. We'll get Jeremiah. Let's see, this is the one I want. Okay, so we're gonna read Jeremiah 3. We'll start at 17. Jeremiah 3:17. At that time they shall call Jerusalem the throne of Yahweh, and all the nations shall be gathered unto it. To the name of Yahweh, to Jerusalem, neither shall they walk any more after the imagination of their evil heart. In those days the house of Judah shall walk with the house of Israel, and they shall come together out the land of the north to the land that I have given for an inheritance unto your fathers. Right? So you also got to think, and when it says the land of the north, it's talking about America. That's what it's talking about. Okay, because it says, in those days the house of Judah, southern kingdom, shall walk with the house of Israel, northern kingdom, because the two kingdoms were split up. Okay, and they shall come together out of the land of the north to the land that I had given for inheritance unto your fathers. So this is where you got to go back into secular history, because we know that the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom was not oppressed together. You know, back in the Babylon, back in the, because it's like Judah was in captivity at Babylon, and the northern kingdom was in captivity in Assyria, and the Syria captivity, and that's when the northern kingdom, you know, end up coming to America. So let's, and it goes back to Christopher Columbus when he came to the Americas, and he knew that the 10 lost tribes were over on this side, and you can get that in Second Esdras 13. It tells you about that, but we'll get into that one probably a little later. But let's get another precept. Jeremiah. 31. 31:8. So we pretty much just trying to establish that this is talking about America. Behold, this is Jeremiah 31:8. Behold, I will bring them from the north country, and gather them from the coast of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame, the woman with child, and her that travaileth with child, together a great company shall return thither. Okay, so this north country is talking about America. Okay, that we're going to be gathered from. So if you get Micah, let's get Micah 4. Micah 4 and 10. Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the land, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There Yahweh shall redeem thee from the hand of thy enemies, right? So this Babylon right here is not talking about ancient Babylon, because the only ones that was in Salakia, it's talking about, it's not talking about ancient Babylon. This is not talking about ancient Babylon, because Belshazzar was taken down by Darius the Median Persian Empire. So we went from the Babylonian Empire right into captivity under the Medo Persian Empire, right? So it's not talking about that. And that's how you're able to know that this is talking about Mystery Babylon, aka America. Okay? And the northern kingdom went into the Assyrian they went under the caps of the Assyrians, right? And we can get that in the Apocrypha. Let's get that. I think it's second address 13. Let's see, we'll start at Let's start 39. And whereas thou sawest that that he gathered another peaceful multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Osias, the king, whom Salmanazar, the king of Assyria, led away captive. And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country. That further country is talking about America, where never mankind dwelt, right? The New World, okay? When Christopher Columbus came and discovered the Americas, that's what it's talking about. That they might there keep their statues, which they never kept in their own land, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half. And the same region is called Ashereth. Okay? Now, if you go into that word Ashereth, let's go into that word Ashereth real quick. See, it even tells you right here too. Right there. This is Moore's Justro. Okay, that's the name of the land beyond the great river, far away from the habitation of man, in which the 10 tribes will dwell. That's not what I'm looking for. Okay, here we go. Ashereth Hebrew means another land or a different land. That's what that means, right? And we know that the 10 tribes, they went into the Americas, right? Because, um, if you go into the history of Christopher Columbus and what he did, he enslaved the Native Americans. He enslaved the other tribes, and and that pretty much what initiated the slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, because he was getting the slaves, the Tahino slaves, and he was shipping them back to Spain, you know. So we know what this means. It means another land, okay? And that land is talking about America. Now, if you go to Deuteronomy, Deuteronomy 29, you go to Deuteronomy 29, it says, where are we going to start? We start at 27. Oh, no, we start at 25. Slack. Deuteronomy 29 and 25. The point is in 28. Then man shall say, because they have forsaken the covenant of Yahweh, power of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods and worshipped them, gods who they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of Yahweh was kindled against this land to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And Yahweh rooted them out of their land in anger, and with wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land. Okay? And we know the northern kingdom was rooted out first, right? Now, we just read and we looked at that word asterisk in 2nd Ezra 13, and it means another land, right? And cast them into another land. That another land is America. Okay? Asterisk means another land. All right, let's go to and we also know that the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom was not oppressed together. So it wasn't oppressed together back in those times, right? We are oppressed together in this time. Okay, let's see. This is Jeremiah. This is Jeremiah 15:33. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Okay, so this is not talking about, there's no history of southern kingdom and northern kingdom being oppressed together. It's in this captivity that we are in right now that we are oppressed together, right? Because the northern kingdom was already in America. They went into captivity. They went into slavery first, right? Starting with when Christopher Columbus came over there, and they started enslaving them from over there, and then after that, the Southern Kingdom came over there, which is the transatlantic slave trade, and this is America is that captivity where we are oppressed together. Okay, so it's not talking about that ancient Babylon. It's not talking about ancient Babylon. It's talking about America, because this is where both the tribes are held captive at. Okay, so let's go back to Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Okay, so we established that Egypt, in this sense, represents the house of bondage. Again, with ships by the way of the world, transatlantic slave trade. We went into that both of the tribes are going to be in America, being oppressed together. We went into that. Thou shalt see it no more again. It's talking about the Holy Land. And there ye should be sold into your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, right? So you got to ask yourself, what other nation of people that were documented, that were sold, as bondmen and bondwomen in slavery, right? No other nation that you can think of that was actually documented that came over here in slave ships, right? Let's get this. You can't find nothing documented like this. That our people was coming out in slave ships. That's why it says in Deuteronomy 28, Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way, whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again, right? So it's America is actually spiritual Egypt, right? Because that's where we're in captivity at. Now, to get a precept on that, let's go to Revelations 11 and 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of that great city, okay? Which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord Yahweh Shai was crucified. So in this sense, these dead bodies not talking about literally dead bodies, but it's saying that because we were spiritually dead, not understanding who we are, we stripped from our heritage, so we pretty much had no understanding. And you can go back, this goes back to Ezekiel 37, the dry bones, right? Us waking up and to the wisdom and understanding of who we are, okay? And why we in the situation that we are in. Shall lie in the street of the great city, right? In America, which spiritually is called Sodom, because Sodom, America upholds all the homosexuality that Sodom did, and Egypt, because of slavery. Okay, and then when it says we're also our Lord, Yahushua was crucified, yes, because this is where the place where they pushed the image of Caesar Borgia. Okay, so America is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, right? Okay, so thou shalt see it no more again. There should be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you, right? So when you go into this word, let's go into this word, buy. Shall buy. Let's go into that word. That buy is kana. Let's see. Outline biblical usage to get, acquire, create, buy, possess. To get, acquire, obtain. Of God, originating, creating, redeeming his people. Processor. Of Eve, acquiring knowledge, wisdom. To buy, to be bought, to cause, to possess. Strong's definition. A permanent root, to erect, to create, by extension, to procure, especially by purchase, costively sell, by implication, to own, attain, buyer, teach, to keep cattle, get, provoke, to jealousy, possess, or purchase, recover, redeem. Okay? Surely, verily. So this word buy is mean redeem, meaning no man will be able to redeem us. So if we go back to how you had all these different sects like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, the Black Panther Party, or whatever. That's what it's talking about. No man shall buy you, right? All these NAACP, all these sects, trying to, pretty much try to free us. And that's why it says no man should buy you, because the only way we're gonna be saved out here is through Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. You know. So now we're gonna go into the reason why we went into why we got into this predicament, why we were sold into our enemies. So if you can scroll up, we'll go start at 15 and then we'll drop down. This is Deuteronomy 20 and 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes which I commanded thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee, right? So this is why we in this predicament right now, because our disobedience, not following the law, statutes, and commandments, and following after the heathen and their gods. This is what we're doing. We're going off as a nation. Deuteronomy 20 and 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. Okay? So that's why we in this right now. And all this right here is a sign. This is how we're able to know who the true people are, because you don't see the white hats going through this. You don't see no other nation and people that's going through these, that went through this stuff that we went through. You don't see them. And if you get this Deuteronomy 20 and 46, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder upon thy seed forever. Yeah, these curses will be assigned to us to let us know who the people are of this book, right? It links with us. You can't match this with nobody else, man. These curses matches us, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and the Native American Indians, man. Okay, so let's go back to Deuteronomy 20:68. Okay, we're going to read this again. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again. So we know that this represents the house of bondage. We had got a couple of precepts on that. Again, with ships, it's talking about the transatlantic slave trade. Thou shalt see it no more. It's talking about the Holy Land. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondman and bondwoman, and no man shall buy you, right? We read that that was one of the punishments that will be serve our enemies, right? And this is going to be our last precept right here. Deuteronomy 28 and 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which Yahweh shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. So when it says in want of all things, we still have to go to our presses for pretty much everything, right? To survive out here, we have to go for food, clothing, etc. Because we don't own none of that. And he should put a yoke of iron upon their neck. It's plain as day. Who was put in chains and shackles and sold on auction box, and it was documented. The children of Israel, right? So I hope this video was edifying. That's all I got. Shalom.